For 6 days, the entire nation of Iran gathered to bury a man. Millions of people flooded the streets of Tehran. Foreign presidents, prime ministers, and dignitaries from dozens of countries came to pay their respects. The coffin of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the man who ruled Iran with an iron grip for 37 years, was carried through a 6-mile procession, past oceans of mourners beating their chests in the summer heat, all the way to the Golden Dome Shrine in the holy city of Mashhad. It was one of the largest funerals the Islamic Republic had ever staged, and at the center of it all, there was a hole. Because the one person the entire ceremony was supposed to hand power to, the new supreme leader of Iran, the most powerful man in the country, was nowhere to be seen. No speech, no photograph, no recorded message, not even a single written statement during the burial of his own father. Just silence. His name is Mojtaba Khamenei. He is, on paper, the new supreme leader of Iran, the ultimate authority over a nation of nearly 90 million people, a country at war with its hand on one of the most important oil choke points on the planet. And the unsettling truth at the heart of this story is that nobody, not ordinary Iranians, not foreign intelligence agencies, not the analysts who study this regime for a living, can say for certain where he is, what condition he's in, or whether he is actually the one making decisions. This is the story of the most powerful ghost in the Middle East, and of the dangerous question hanging over Iran right now. If the supreme leader is missing, then who exactly is in charge? To understand how bizarre and destabilizing this really is, you have to understand what the office of supreme leader normally means in Iran. This is not a ceremonial position. This is not a figurehead who cuts ribbons. The supreme leader is the final word on everything that matters. War and peace, the nuclear program, the direction of the economy, the fate of negotiations with the United States. For decades, Ali Khamenei was the visible, constant face of that power. Not a week went by without a speech, a religious ruling, a carefully timed intervention. He was, in a very real sense, the meaning of Iran's power, the fixed point around which the entire system turned. Now, compare that to his son. Since the war began at the end of February, Mojtaba Khamenei has never once shown his face in public. He has never used his voice. Everything attributed to him arrives secondhand. Statements read out on state television, posts on social media, messages relayed through intermediaries. At one point, the regime reportedly went so far as to use AI-generated video to make it appear as though he was delivering a message. Let that sink in for a moment. A nuclear threshold state at war may have used artificial intelligence to simulate the presence of its own head of state, because it apparently could not, or would not, produce the real man. So where is he? This is where we have to be careful and honest, because the truth is that a lot of what's said about Mojtaba Khamenei's condition is unconfirmed, and both his supporters and his enemies have reasons to shape the story. But here's what has been reported by credible outlets. Mojtaba is believed to have been wounded in the very same February 28th airstrike that killed his father. The strike that opened the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran. That same attack is reported to have killed his mother and his wife. According to reporting from multiple sources, including statements from American defense officials, Mojtaba was, quote, wounded and likely disfigured in that strike. Later reporting suggested he was recovering from severe facial and leg injuries, and there were even claims, unverified, that he may have lost a leg. Iranian media reported he did not attend his own wife's funeral. He has remained in hiding ever since, communicating only through the written word. Picture for a moment an ordinary man in Tehran. We don't know his name, so think of him as a composite, a stand-in for the millions of Iranians actually living through this. Call him Kaveh. Kaveh grew up in a country where the supreme leader was an inescapable presence, a face on every billboard, a voice on the radio every week, the one constant in a life full of uncertainty. Now Kaveh looks up at those same billboards and sees the face of a man he has never heard speak, never seen move, never watched deliver a single live address. As one real Tehran resident put it during the funeral, their country was no longer the Iran of old where the leader is publicly present. Another said something even more haunting, that believing in this unseen leader had started to feel like believing in a mystical, hidden figure, something you do not see but are simply asked to have faith exists. For a state that runs on the visible authority of one man, that is an extraordinary and dangerous shift. Now the regime has an official explanation, and it's not an unreasonable one on its face. They say Mojtaba stays hidden for his own security. And honestly, given what happened to his father, that argument has real weight. President Trump himself openly hinted at the danger of Iran's leadership gathering in one place, reportedly saying of the funeral crowds, "They are all there. One shot, and we can take them all out." Israel's defense minister had gone even further at points in this war, reportedly threatening Mojtaba directly. So when Iranian officials say the new supreme leader can't risk a public appearance because he would instantly become the single highest value target in the region, that is a genuinely credible concern. A dead supreme leader helps no one who wants the regime to survive. But, and this is the crucial tension at the heart of the whole story, that same protective silence creates a completely different and equally serious problem. Because in Iran's system, absence is not neutral. When the most powerful man in the country vanishes from view, it doesn't just protect him. It raises a question that every rival, every faction, and every ordinary citizen starts asking quietly, is he actually running things? Or is the office effectively empty, with other people making the real decisions in his name? And this is where the analysis gets genuinely fascinating, because the experts who study Iran closely have started to converge on a disturbing possibility. It's not just that Mojtaba is hidden, it's that he may be, in the words of one analyst from the International Crisis Group, missing in action in a functional sense, not in a state to actually make critical decisions or micromanage the sensitive negotiations with the United States. According to this reading, the system uses Mojtaba's name to rubber stamp big, broad decisions, to provide final approval, but the actual day-to-day governing, the real tactical choices, are being made by other people. And here's the clever, almost cynical part. Attributing decisions to an unseen leader is actually useful for Iran's politicians. It gives them cover. Negotiators can shield themselves from criticism by saying they're simply carrying out the will of the supreme leader, a supreme leader who never appears to confirm or deny anything. So if Mojtaba is a figurehead, a name used as a shield, then who is really holding the levers of power? This is the most important question in the entire story, and the answer points in one clear direction: the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. To understand why, you need to know what kind of leader Mojtaba actually is, stripped of the title. Unlike his father and unlike the founder of the revolution, Ayatollah Khamenei, Mojtaba is not a towering religious scholar. In fact, before his sudden elevation, he was widely considered a mid-ranking cleric. Iranian institutions had to scramble to boost his religious credentials, increasingly referring to him as an Ayatollah to meet the constitutional requirement that the supreme leader be a senior Islamic jurist. He was also never a powerful, independent political figure in his own right. What he actually did for decades was run his father's sprawling office, the web of contacts, the back channels, the machinery of the leadership. And crucially, in doing that job, he built extremely close ties with the Revolutionary Guards. That relationship is now the key to everything. Analysts describe Mojtaba as having relied on the support of the IRGC to secure the position in the first place, which makes him deeply dependent on that force. One policy director put it bluntly: the balance of power between the office of the supreme leader and the IRGC has shifted toward the guards. Another analyst offered perhaps the sharpest line of all, saying Mojtaba cannot summon the founder's charisma, and he cannot fake his father's authority because that authority took a lifetime of crises to build. The likely outcome, experts suggest, is that Mojtaba will rule through Iran's institutions rather than truly over them. A weaker leader, more legitimate on paper than in the hearts of his people, presiding over a system where the men in uniform increasingly call the shots. And there's a deep historical irony buried in this that's worth pausing on. The entire 1979 revolution that created the Islamic Republic was, in part, a rejection of hereditary rule, the toppling of a Shah, a king who passed power down through his bloodline. Now, 47 years later, the Islamic Republic has done something that looks an awful lot like exactly that. A father handing the highest office in the land to his son. For many Iranians, that contradiction is not lost. It chips away at the legitimacy of the whole arrangement, especially when the son in question is a man most of them have never even seen. Let's talk about why this matters far beyond Iran's borders. Because a leadership vacuum in a country like this is not just an internal political drama. It's a genuine risk factor for the entire region and the global economy. Think about the timing. Right now, Iran is locked in an on-again, off-again war with the United States. American forces have been striking Iranian targets. The Strait of Hormuz, the waterway that carries roughly a fifth of the world's seaborne oil, keeps sliding in and out of crisis. Negotiations between Washington and Tehran are limping along, sometimes stalling entirely. And every one of those flashpoints requires someone on the Iranian side to make fast, high-stakes decisions, to draw red lines, to decide when to escalate and when to pull back. Now imagine trying to negotiate with a country when you genuinely can't tell who has the final authority. Is it Mojtaba, issuing broad approvals from some undisclosed location? Is it the parliament speaker who's serving as chief negotiator? Is it the IRGC commanders? Is it some shifting committee of survivors? When American officials sit across a table from Iranian representatives, they face a profound uncertainty. Even if they reach a deal, can the people in the room actually deliver it? A regime with a clear, visible, decisive leader is, paradoxically, easier and safer to deal with than one where power is diffuse, contested, and hidden. ambiguity at the top makes miscalculation far more likely. And miscalculation in a war involving oil, missiles, and drones is exactly how things spiral out of control. We should also be fair and acknowledge the other side of this, because responsible analysis means steel-manning the regime's position too. It is entirely possible that Iran's system is functioning more smoothly than the drama of Mojtaba's absence suggests. Some Iranians interviewed during the funeral said the government appeared to be working just fine without the supreme leader physically present. Institutions kept running, statements kept coming. The parliament speaker, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, has continued to lead negotiations. Officials have gone out of their way to project unity, with one state-affiliated outlet dismissing rumors of internal rifts as delusions pushed by Western media. It's genuinely possible that this is a system designed to survive precisely this kind of shock, a collective leadership that doesn't actually need one charismatic figure at the center to keep the machine running. Analysts even point out that Mojtaba's very absence might be helping the regime survive by removing a single target and forcing power to distribute rather than concentrate. But here's the thing about that reassurance. It cuts both ways. If the system doesn't really need the supreme leader to function, then what does that say about the office itself? For nearly half a century, the entire theological and political architecture of the Islamic Republic has rested on the idea of the supreme leader as the divinely guided center of authority. If it turns out the country can run for months with that seat effectively empty, occupied by a wounded, silent figure whose decisions may be made by others, then something fundamental about the nature of power in Iran has quietly changed. The center of gravity has moved, and it appears to have moved toward the barrel of a gun, toward the Revolutionary Guards. So let's bring it all together, because the picture that emerges is genuinely one of the most consequential and least understood stories in the world right now. Iran, a nation at war with nuclear ambitions and a hand on the global oil supply, is being led by a man who has not been seen or heard in public since the war began. He was likely gravely wounded in the strike that killed his father. He lacks the religious authority and the personal power base that defined every leader before him. He owes his position to the Revolutionary Guards, and by every serious analysis, real power is flowing toward them. His name is used to approve big decisions and to give political cover to the people actually running the negotiations. And the longer he stays hidden, the louder the questions grow, not just abroad, but among the Iranian people themselves, whose sense of national security was tied for decades to the visible presence of a strong leader. What happens next is genuinely uncertain. Maybe Mojtaba eventually recovers and emerges, and consolidates power the way his father did, though it's worth remembering it took Ali Khamenei years to fully cement his authority after being named leader back in 1989. Maybe he remains a permanent shadow, a signature, and a name attached to decisions made by others. Maybe the Revolutionary Guards continue their quiet ascent until the office of Supreme Leader becomes something closer to a religious rubber stamp on top of what is effectively military rule. Each of those paths leads to a very different Iran and a very different set of risks for the world. But the immediate reality is this. At one of the most dangerous moments in its 47-year history, in the middle of a war that could reignite at any moment, Iran's ultimate authority is a question mark. The most powerful man in the country is a face on a billboard that no one has watched speak. And when a nation with this much at stake can't clearly answer the simplest question of all, who is in charge? That uncertainty isn't just Iran's problem, it's everyone's. If this breakdown helped you make sense of what's actually happening inside Iran's leadership, subscribe for full analysis on this conflict every week. And drop a comment below. Do you think Mojtaba Khamenei eventually steps into the light and takes real control? Or has power in Iran already quietly passed to the Revolutionary Guards for good?